little bit. Like, these Indians, we can't let them drink.
Really?
That's genuinely how it felt.
The reason why you're choosing the career that you have right now?
It's almost like the yin to the yang of sport fishing to me. Because like we're both on the water all the time, every day. We're both out there sharing things, but those guys, it's like a short-term resource extractment for sport fishing.
What would be the one thing that you would advise people not to engage or not to do?
I genuinely avoid playing into any sort of a native stereotype. I don't ever want to let people see me trying to explain the culture when I'm hungover or smelling like booze or anything. That's shameful to me. That's gross.
Tuna!
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Tell me a little bit more about your background, your upbringing.
Well, I can't say I was born on Haida Gwaii because they quit delivering babies in Masset around the time I was born for some reason. My mother was also in labor for 4 days, so she got sent to Rupert.
Oh, really?
Yeah, everything was fine. Northwest Coast babies are just really big.
Yeah.
But I was raised in Masset my whole life. I grew up with my grandparents mostly. My father wasn't around too much when I was a kid. He was kind of in and out of jail and stuff like that. He's a pretty prominent figure, I guess. And
is there a jail in Haida Gwaii?
No, not really. The closest major one is Prince George, I think.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I was raised by my mother until I was about 7. And then I moved in with my grandparents. Pretty much lived with them until I moved to college.
Where did you go to college?
I went to college at CNC in Prince George for welding. Okay. But I didn't really like it. I didn't really like living under the mask like that. It's a really fun hobby to have. I enjoyed it. Yeah. But it's not really the industry I found myself enjoying too much. So I moved back home and I started driving boats for the CHN actually. And then I got my SVOP and stuff like that. And started
What's
driving
the CHN?
boats.
Sorry.
Oh, Council of the Haida Nation.
Okay.
Yeah. So
So is it like a commercial boat or a passenger boat?
Kind of. It's kind of small time, so I was just like running the mapping crew out to Naden Harbor and things like that. Okay. It was just a skiff really. Way back when CHN still had this company under their belt. It was a couple fishing lodges and they wanted to venture into the ecotourism business. They just knew that I had an abundance of knowledge, I guess. I've always been. So I was raised by my grandparents, so I grew up kind of hanging out with people who have a lot of knowledge, so I just kind of absorbed it from a young age really. Okay. And then mostly just how to carry myself as an older person, I guess. Not even knowledge, just sort of cadence, I guess. I get along with older people quite a lot. Okay. I've always had respect for elders at a very young age. I grew up with them. I was raised by them. Okay. So I always knew how to convey myself as a mature person, I guess, and that's a good skill to have in this industry, I suppose. I also had a lot of cultural knowledge, and that's a lot of what I absorbed too, because my grandfather, my Chinny, was born in Heidelberg, Alaska. Okay. And he was taken here when he was a young kid. He was in line to be hereditary chief, 𝐀𝐥𝐫𝐢𝐠𝐿 of the 𝐏𝐥𝐞𝐫𝐿 clan. Wow. So he was kind of brought up from a young age to kind of be held to that standard as well. And
as a leader
type thing. And his aunties took him out to 𝐏𝐥𝐫𝐿 when he was a young buck to show him the territory he was going to be chief of. The way it works, really just sort of relating to people, talking to people, and just being kind and respectful to everybody, and also wanting to share the knowledge is a big thing, because my grandparents always wanted to share. Okay. They always wanted to share things, because if you don't share it, it's going to be gone.
When you first started your career as a tour guide, what challenges that you stumble upon and have stopped you or even made you want to switch career at one point?
Very interesting challenge. They wanted us to be a dry lodge, where our two sister companies were they're sport fishing lodges, so drinking culture was very prominent over there. Okay. But because we were a smaller lodge, there was only about 16 or 17 of us. Okay. And there was only 2 or 3 of us that weren't Haida. I think the oldest person we had was like 36 or 40. It was a very young, very Haida crew. Okay. And to have them set that boundary on us felt discriminatory, and it felt ridiculous actually. Well, they just didn't want us to drink basically. But like you live out there for the whole summer. It's like 4 months you're out there. Yeah. And you work like 10-12 hour days, and like for them to just say no, you can't even have a beer after your shift. Really? It really felt like they're just sticking their finger in our face and saying like,
you got ostracized a little bit.
A little bit, like, these Indians, we can't let them drink.
Really?
That's genuinely how it felt, because our sister lodges, they're sport fishing lodges, so they had a lot of Caucasian Canadian employees. They had a lot of white guys working with them. Yeah. And those guys would just get hammered, and it was never ever an issue. Nobody said anything. Right. Obviously, they had their problems with things like that. When guys get too drunk, things happen, whatever, this or that. Sure. But nothing ever too major. But like, they didn't even allow us the chance, and it just genuinely felt like, these guys are Haida, we can't let them they're gonna get wild.
Wow. How did you feel about that?
I was really salty because like most of us tried to adhere to it just because I mean we didn't really like it, but like those were the rules, so we tried not to. And then one of the chefs that they imported in, some guy from Ontario or something like that, he was regularly drinking on the job and just getting hammered all the time.
And he was able to function.
And I was getting really upset with it. I was like, well, what the heck?
That's
you
crazy.
know, Joe Blow over here, he can drink, but like...
Was drinking a part of a big thing in the culture to bond with your cohorts, or is it just because everybody's doing it and you feel like you should be?
It just, not even that it's like a big part of the culture. It's just like, it just genuinely felt like the only reason that they didn't want us to was because we're young Haida people.
Wow. How old were you at that time?
I was 26 maybe.
Okay. Then what happened?
We had some meetings with the big boss and stuff like that, and it eventually got worked out. And eventually they just...
Like, what did they do to?
They just kind of relaxed it because they realized like you can't discriminate one lodge. You can't just say this lodge can't drink, but these two can. So eventually they just kind of let it go and said, go ahead, and gave us the same rules as everybody else.
Yeah.
Which is like the baseline bare minimum, just treat us the same as everybody else.
So that's very recent.
It was very recently.
Oh, we're not talking about like back in the 90s. We're
no,
like just
I'm only 31.
So you look good for your age. So
Thank you. Another challenge I had to overcome was just a personal challenge, really, of having to deal with watching sport fishermen all the time.
What is sports fishing?
Sport fishing is just you go out there and you catch and release all day, but you can take the biggest fish you want.
Okay.
Because when you go out there, I think you get 50 pounds of fillets.
Okay.
50 pounds of filleted fish is a lot.
Yeah.
And some of these guys, you know, they tip really well, their favorite guests or whatever. Some of these guys are going home with like almost 2 or 3 boxes.
Wow.
Like some of these guys are pushing 65, 70 pounds, 80 pounds of filleted fish.
Wow.
And when you catch and release a fish, it's almost 50-50. It's a 30% chance it's going to live.
Okay.
I mean, it's a 30% better chance of dying.
Yeah.
So it's almost 50-50 that it's going to live or die when you catch and release these fish. Because some of these guys play these fish for like 40 minutes. Like it takes a lot out of the fish, then you take it out of the water and you take a picture and everything, and then you release it and it swims off. But it's got a 30% chance.
Okay. There's a great chance the fish might die, and that kind of upsets you.
It was mainly the amount of the resource extraction. Because to me, it genuinely kind of feels like back in the Native American days, back in America, when they were just killing the buffalo so they could have better control of the natives. Because like our sister lodges are flying out tens of thousands of pounds of fish. Yeah. Like per chopper. Yeah. Per chopper. And these guys are sending out 3, 4, 5 choppers every changeover. It pains me more personally because it was a big thing. My Chini, my grandfather, he used to feel quite strongly about it because it was even worse back in the day. My Chini seen the brunt of this stuff. And so they went to residential school. And the things they seen there caused them a lot of trauma. Yeah. And that causes a lot of alcoholism in the society just to help cope with these things. Okay. So I grew up watching them kind of cope like that because they both went to residential school for 3 and 4 years. Yeah. And eventually he would just get real drunk and he would start talking about his feelings and everything. And he would start crying about these fishing lodges because they were just taking so much fish. Yeah. And I had to see his feelings about that. So that kind of got instilled in me from a young age. Yeah. So I felt quite strongly about that.
Yeah, we just came back from the Haida Museum and the Heritage Center, and we saw a slogan that says everything is related to everything else.
Everything depends on everything else.
Knowing the background of the residential school and the trauma that your immediate family member had experienced, put an impact on your career per se?
A little bit. So it generally boils down to intergenerational trauma. So my grandparents went through horrific things. Okay. And they come home insane the things they had to go through. So they don't have the resources. They don't even understand to begin how to cope with these things.
For viewers who are not born in Canada, how would you describe what a residential school is?
Residential school was designed to take the children away far enough that they couldn't run home and to strip them of their culture and to possibly not even send them home. No intentions of sending them home. My grandparents didn't come home for 3 and 4 years, I think. They feel genuinely lucky they got to even come home.
And they weren't allowed to speak the language
No, so you weren't allowed to speak the language. You weren't allowed to do anything of the culture, really. One of my best friend's dads, he got his tongue whipped for speaking Haida. I know Nani in Massac who got her fingernails ripped off for speaking Haida. I know a man in 𝐬𝐫𝐤𝐝 whose job it was to throw babies in a furnace after the priests would sexually abuse young Native women after getting them pregnant. And he would have to throw the babies in a furnace.
And how long was that ago? What happened?
These guys are still around, so this is probably
still around.
This was probably about 70 years ago, 75 years ago, maybe less. The last residential school didn't close until 1996.
Right.
Until I was 3 years old, I was technically eligible to go to residential school.
Yeah.
In the 90s.
Yeah. And do you feel like that has a big impact on the reason why you're choosing the career that you have right now?
It's almost like the yin to the yang of sport fishing to me, because like we're both on the water all the time, every day. We're both out there sharing things, but those guys, it's like a short-term resource extractment for sport fishing. I'm just out there to share knowledge, and to share my appreciation for Haida Gwaii.
Yeah.
With other people, I want to share appreciation for Haida Gwaii.
That's amazing. What would you say would be the most important thing for the next younger generation?
To be in my industry, being a people person, I guess, because a lot of people around Haida Gwaii have this type of knowledge, but they don't feel as comfortable sharing it, or they don't feel as comfortable talking to people. They don't feel as comfortable just going out there and introducing themselves, or whatever it may be. So you really got to be able to be a people person.
Were you born with all these characteristics already, or this is an attribute that you learned later on?
I think it sort of came naturally, I guess, but I was exposed to a lot of people from a young age. I was just always out and about. I used to just hang out at a lot of adult parties when I was a little kid, because like we were just in the res.
Yeah.
And like I moved in with my grandparents just because I was hanging out by myself all the time at home, so I moved in with them. But they were still drinking at the time. I don't think they quit until I was probably almost a teenager. But so I was just hanging out at these res parties, talking to old Haida guys, and just hearing their stories and stuff like that. So I got to learn to talk to people from a pretty young age, I guess.
Okay.
So that helped. For me personally, I feel like I am where I am because I sat down with so many elders and so many people who have this type of knowledge, and just genuinely sat with them and talked to them and listened to their story, and just tried to absorb everything that they're willing to share in a respectful way, so that I can share it in a respectful way.
What would be the one thing that you would advise people not to engage or not to do?
For me personally, I genuinely avoid playing into any sort of a Native stereotype.
Okay. Can you elaborate?
Like the Native stereotype is a lot of the time like we drink too much, we're drunks, whatever, this or that. So I really try to avoid ever like mixing the two. I don't ever want to let people see me trying to explain the culture when I'm hungover or smelling like booze or anything. That's shameful to me. That's gross. I don't like mixing the two, and I don't like the thought of people being able to think of me as a Native stereotype.
How would that make you feel when people stereotype you, if you don't mind me asking?
I mean, it has happened a lot. Like I go to Vancouver and stuff. I go all up and down the coast, whether people like it or not. Like people stereotype Natives a lot. Okay. So I don't. It doesn't bother me a whole lot. Almost makes me look down my nose at people who still think about people that way. People who just like racially profile people or anything like that. It just makes me think less of them, that they would think less.
Thank you very much.
No worries.
For sharing your story. There's so much more we can learn. As I'm reading Jody Wilson Raybaum, and there's so much that we can do, but we don't know where to start. So being able to listen to your story, very awe-inspiring.
Thank you.
We saw something that wasn't right. In our generation, if we don't do something about it, if we can right the wrong, then we're the culprit. We are just as evil.
Being complicit.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. So, thank you, Tuna.
Thank you, good sir.
That was very heartfelt.